This is Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. I'm your host, Paul Gatling, and we are bringing the University of Central Arkansas to Northwest Arkansas. Each episode, we will talk with leaders, alumni, and innovators driving this region forward, people who are shaping industries and defining what is next for our state. Let's get started. All right, we're back with another episode of Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. Paul Gatling here with you. And my guest today is right in the middle of all the conversations that we're having in Northwest Arkansas right now about growth and long-term thinking and regional development. And that man is Wes Craiglow. He's Executive Director of the Northwest Arkansas chapter of the Urban Land Institute. He has a lot of great perspectives that we're going to get into. UCA alum, I think a couple of degrees from UCA, that's right? Army veteran, former city planner in Conway, a paid fly fishing guide
for a while.
So yeah, a lot to get into there. Wes, it's great to see you. Thanks for being on the pod.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah. So let's just start at a very high level. When somebody asks you, Urban Land Institute, what is that? What do you do? What is the Urban Land Institute here for?
Great question.
Yeah.
So ULI is about a 90-year-old nonprofit member association. We have a member network of about 50,000 and over 50 chapters. We call them district councils.
Okay.
We have 50 district councils, more so, in fact, around the U.S. and offices, in fact, in Australia, Europe, and Asia. Fundamentally, the mission of ULI is to advance best practices in the built environment. We believe at ULI that an improved quality of place directly influences an improved quality of life. And that means different things to different cities. Yeah. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. And that's why we have this decentralized model with district councils supporting various metros throughout the country. We serve as a cross-disciplinary convener. What I mean by that is you look at our member network and you're not going to see just one discipline, one trade association. You're going to see everybody associated with helping a region grow. Public sector, private sector, academia, nonprofiteers from every possible discipline you can think of. If you are engaged in helping shape the future of the built environment, ULI is for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's on display with the roughly 300 members that we have here in the Northwest Arkansas Metro advancing the ULI mission on our behalf.
So you mentioned that phrase, best practices. What does that mean when you apply it to real places here like Northwest Arkansas? What is it where regionalism is our mantra, right? It's not city by city, it's regionalism. What does best practices mean for ULI in Northwest Arkansas?
Well, it means something different to everybody, right? I think when we all have a unique relationship with our built environment, the world that we exist in, right? What we do know fundamentally is that how we consume and build atop the landscape in cities and towns directly influences how people go on about their life, right? This goes back to our earliest ancestors and how the natural world would influence behaviors. We got to go find shelter. We got to find warmth. We want to move with the climate. We got to go where the food is. In many ways, the built environment still modifies our behavior, those environmental determinants of health, right? And so where are we socially bonded? Where do we call home? Where do we go to work? Where do we play and entertain? Where do we educate and more? How tightly are we bonded with our neighbors and our friends? The built environment directly informs and influences how we go about our day to day. Now, what is a best practice within that context? It's different for everybody, right? And so I usually try to keep it simple and try to make it relatable to people in their own minds. Where do you go on vacation? What sort of cities do you find yourself when you're traveling? Are they compact, walkable communities, rich with experience and amenities in a small area? Maybe you like going to those small towns, those quaint little New England towns, or maybe you like a larger scale, a place like Rome or Athens or Barcelona, or maybe your built environment is more open space. Maybe your best practices have to do with large riparian corridors and space for wildlife and peace and quiet, and everything in between. Yeah. And so everybody's going to answer that question differently. And from a governmental point of view, a regulatory or a market point of view, practitioners are going to answer that question differently as well, because they're trying to deliver products and zoning regulation and infrastructure choices that correspond to where the broad cross section of the citizens they support and the markets they support, where they want that market to go. And so again, at ULI, we are agile. We are responsive to the various dynamics in any given district council area that we support. And we definitely love working by, with, and through the industry professionals to stay tuned in to what a best practice means to Northwest Arkansas, and try to walk that fine line as a neutral convener and help people achieve it together.
You know, when you said 300 members, that made me think back on, you know, I was at the Business Journal for a long time. I was at the very first ULI Northwest Arkansas gathering.
No kidding.
This was probably 9 or 10 years ago. You know, Jeremy Hudson,
That's
you know, was so instrumental in getting this council up and running with it. There was some sort of a sponsorship from the Oklahoma City chapter or whatever. And so the first meeting, Ramsey Ball was told, you got to be there. You got to come to this. This is important. This is big. So I went to the Record in downtown Bentonville, and that was the first event. There were, Mike Malone spoke when he was with our Runway group after he left the Northwest Arkansas Council. There was a former mayor of Oklahoma City who was there, who was moved on to ULI.
Nick Cornett, probably.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
And there were about 60 people there.
Yeah.
And it was great. And everybody, and like you said, it was just such a cross section of bankers and real estate and title and just all sorts of industry professionals there. And so, as the decade has progressed, and I think you came up here, 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago?
We were officially launched with staff in April of 2019. So we're coming right up on 7-year anniversary. I like to think that's the official change. We became a formal part of the ULI network, and over time grew our governance, grew a strategic plan, separated from that mentorship from ULI Oklahoma, and now charted our own course. We're very, very thankful we've been able to come so far in 7 years, and appreciate you sharing those stories, because again, that was before I was hired to lead the district council. And so I love hearing those early moments of just a loose group of folks who believed in the mission and came together to share ideas and talk about various ways forward for us.
It's exciting here, and a lot of different stories and ways to think about 7 years ago and 10 years ago and 4 years ago, and just how we keep evolving. So, well, before we get deeper into that and Northwest Arkansas and your work, I want to go back to your Conway roots.
All right.
Your Conway story, right? So as we mentioned, you're a UCA graduate, but you're also a Conway High School graduate.
Wampus Cat through and through.
Yeah. You've got, what's the six-legged thing, the cheer that they have?
You're going to put me on the spot. It's something like 4 for running with all the flight, and 2 for fighting with all the might or something.
We'll call that good.
It's 30 years since high school graduation and singing the fight song. You have to forgive me, but proud Conway roots, multi-generational Conway roots going back a long time, and couldn't be more proud of that.
Mm-hmm. And so you decided to stay home and attend UCA. Tell me about that decision to be a Bear.
Well, what a gift to have an incredible institution in my backyard. Mm-hmm. And it's important to acknowledge that my family has deep roots in Conway. My mother and my grandparents both. My grandfather, Graham Nixon, was a state senator representing the Conway district and served as a trustee at the time, Arkansas State Teachers College. Subsequent to that, my mother ran the Chamber of Commerce as an elder at a church there in Conway, and we have deep roots there. And then as a Wampus Cat and later a UCA student and graduate myself, I definitely desired to carry on that tradition. I understood the value of having that institution right there in our city. I knew that it would make me stronger and build my relationships in a way that would pay off. And they did. And I'm happy to talk about that a little bit today through my time at Conway City Hall. Mm-hmm. And ultimately who it's made me today, right up here in Northwest Arkansas, and how I'm continuing to use the education and the relationships I forged through graduate and undergraduate school at UCA right here in Northwest Arkansas today. And I would be failing in my duty if I didn't also mention the ROTC program, Bayonet Battalion. Mm-hmm. UCA is where I transitioned from enlisted Army to earning my commission as an officer that is now 25 years into that career, established me as one of Arkansas's senior leaders, Lieutenant Colonel. I'm currently the operations officer for the 87th Troop Command, and I would not have my military career but for that ROTC resource found at UCA.
Yeah. So your military career, let's stop there. You were a student at UCA for 9/11, during 9/11, right? So what do you remember about that moment?
I was in Burdick Business Building. It's funny you bring that up. I don't share the story too often. I was in Burdick Business and Accounting class, Accounting 1. And I walked out and a friend of mine called. It was like old Nokia cell phone. He said, "You got to come over and check this thing out." And I went to his apartment, and just in time to catch the second plane. Mm-hmm. And So fast forward, my story is not dissimilar to many. Ultimately, what matters is that on Thursday, I was in the recruiter's office.
Yes, just a couple of days later.
I didn't know why. I didn't know. I guess I knew why. I didn't understand that event, Tuesday, 9/11, would ignite a spark in me the way that it did. But I was pretty quick to lean into that. I didn't know where it would take me. Certainly had no reason to believe that I'd be here 25 years later, still continuing to serve. But it set a lot of things in motion. And so, I took a little hiatus from UCA, went off to basic and AIT, and OSITs, we call it, became a combat engineer and served as an enlisted soldier for some time before coming back to UCA and finishing my undergraduate degree in 2004, simultaneously earning that commission as a second lieutenant and starting that big phase 2 of my journey in the Reserve and Arkansas National Guard as a commissioned officer.
So if not for 9/11, then what did you intend to do with your life? What career did you envision for yourself? What were you going to be when you left the university?
I had no idea about it. I think I mentioned to you on 9/11, I was in Burdick Business Building that morning, beautiful morning. And I think at the time I was a business major, but I think prior to that, I dabbled in environmental science, maybe, and history. History scared me off because there was too much reading and writing, and I didn't have the patience for that. I think environmental science, I got into organic chemistry and zipped out of that pretty quickly. I think me and accounting didn't click. It wasn't until later I found geography and the geography department at UCA, and all of a sudden I became a straight A student. And I knew I was just wise enough in my 20s to know that when something feels easy, it just clicks, probably on the right path. Like follow that instinct. And so,
what was
Jeff Allen or Paul Budd, Jerry Reynolds, Brooks Green, like the team that was around in the geography department in that era of the late 90s and early 2000s, not to suggest that the team now is great, but Mary Sue Passay Smith, like that team just, really was amazing. And they inspired me. And I didn't know what I was going to do with a geography degree either. I assumed I was going to come up here and go to grad school and maybe become a professor myself.
Correct.
But I part of that geography degree led me to an internship at Conway City Hall, and that internship ended with a job offer. And at the time, I think it was something like $29,000 a year to be a junior planner, a GIS tech on the team. And I thought I was rich.
Yeah,
$29,000 a year. Where do I sign? And so that kept me. That was when I committed to staying in Conway, and that supported. I immediately went to Tab Townsville, incredible mayor, a longtime mayor of the city of Conway. And I went to my boss, Brian Patrick, in Tab Townsville, and I said, hey, can I go to grad school part-time? Can you let me escape City Hall for an hour or two here and there and start graduate school? And they did. And so I went right back to UCA, marched right back across Donaghy, back into class in the community. At the time, it was a traditional Master's of Science in Community and Economic Development, and started down that grad school path and completed the Community Development Institute as part of it. Later went on to teach adjunct in both of those departments after graduation. And I don't think that MSCED program is there anymore, but it was instrumental to my success all while I was back at City Hall learning how to be a city planner.
Yeah, of course, CDI, you mentioned the Institute is obviously still there, still thriving, and still coming up on a 40-year anniversary.
And
you can believe that or not.
What a gift to our state and region to have CDI.
Yeah, sends economic developers, municipal leaders all across the state and other states as well. And so I've gotten to know, Nathan C., the mayor at Pea Ridge, and Trish Way at the water utility, and just so many people up here who that I knew from the Business Journal, and they hear me UCA, first thing out of their mouth, Community Development Institute. I love CDI, big believer in CDI.
Yeah, well, I have of note, one of our staff members at ULI, our director of operations, Megan Brown. I've just told her your professional development, your next professional development target is CDI. So she's applied for the new Northwest Arkansas cohort, the second cohort coming up. Continue to lean into that as an opportunity, invaluable experience to those leaders. And again, the second and third order ripple effects across our state and region, what it means to UCA and what it means to the communities that UCA serves through the CDI experience, touches countless lives. Again, it's a gift.
All right. So you came to Northwest Arkansas in 2019, I think, for the job at ULI.
That's right.
Before that, you spent 10 years at City Hall in Conway, city planner. Eventually, what's it like? What do people misunderstand about what a city planner does?
Well, that's presuming I know what they understand. So I want to be cautious about trying to live in anyone else's mind.
Yep.
But I will say that being a city planner is it's electrifying, right? Especially in a city like Conway at that era, from the mid 2000s to the mid teens when I was there, and I got the chance to do basically every job in the department. So comprehensive look and touches on a period of Conway growth that was really instrumental to who Conway is today, right? I was there when we clicked the 50,000 population mark that set a lot of outside investment in play, interstate interchanges and institutional capital hitting our landscape with hotels and restaurants and shopping centers and more. And at the same time, the city and the chamber were being very deliberate about investing in downtown and making downtown a destination. The voters of the city of Conway were supporting bond referendums for park spending in the industrial park and more. And so I was there at a moment, Paul, when we were flooded with growth. And what a great place to be, from the junior staffer all the way to one of the senior advisors at the city council and the mayor, to be a part of that. It made me, by and large, it was instrumental in making me the built environment professional that I am today. Complemented, of course, by community and economic development master's degree and leadership in the Army and more, CDI, like we talked about. But it was an incredible decade there in Conway. The role of the city planner is a delicate one, because we at once need to be tuned in to the citizenry, right? The citizenry gets a vote in how their city grows and shapes over the horizon. And so how do we stay tuned into the citizenry while simultaneously being tuned into the political climate, because it matters. We've got to get policies across the line, comprehensive growth strategies and more projects across the line. And that demands you get, planning commission and city council on board. We've got to make sure that what we do is feasible and reasonable and acceptable so that you can get the work done. And then you're trying to strike a balance with best practices. What do we know from case studies in similar cities? What is working and not working in other places? We have grand visions, but how do you get the rubber to the road, right? And there are systems and processes, just like there are in every industry and every trade and every career. There are systems and processes and practices that we need to stay true to. The ethos of the professional planner, if you will, code of ethics, right? And how do we stay true to those to make sure that we avoid any minefields along the way and exposure to the city along the way? And so being a planner is much like walking a tightrope and maintaining a balance between all of those stakeholder groups and points of friction and interest. And it's puzzle solving every day, and it's a lot of fun. Not without its challenges, and you don't always get it right, no question about it. But it is a lot of fun, and when you do get it right, you believe that you've shaped something that you may not see in your working life. Like the story arc of a city planner is measured in generational scale, right? And so sometimes the policy or projects that we would advance may not show up materially for 20 or 40 years on the landscape in a way that's affecting the community in a positive way. And so it is nevertheless fulfilling, but it's a long play on fulfilling. And it's one of the most beautiful parts to me.
Is that still part of your work here? I mean, to get people to think past just their next project. I mean, you're thinking in the future. Is that the biggest challenge? Is that Always. A challenge?
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, at ULI right now, that's primarily where we live. Mm-hmm. So we'll share with you that we are right now really committed to helping this region understand where the market is, right? Like where do we see capital deploying? Because capital is the grease. When those debt partners and equity partners show up and choose to make an investment in a project, that gets the wheels in motion, right? Where is the infrastructure going? Effectively, those infrastructure decisions can be like capital partners, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the state highway department doing? What is the Beaver Water District doing? What are other wastewater providers like NACA doing? What are the individual municipalities doing with the utilities and the transportation infrastructure that they control? And then what is the role of zoning and regulation, right? And how does that regulatory environment support entitlement, especially friction-free entitlement? How do we have predictability in the entitlement processes? And then what's the role of the citizen? Like genuinely, what's in the best interest of the citizenry in terms of creating choice? How do we move around the landscape? Choice. What sort of house might be available? Is it affordable? And architecturally, does it support the needs of my family? What's its location? What is the location of the places where we're growing for our citizenry? What does that mean to how the region behaves collectively? Access to good services, amenities, social bonding, public health outcomes, right down to like how the natural world around us is behaving. How are we maintaining open spaces? How are we managing our stormwater? Where are we moving our refuse? And what is the role of recreation, right? And tourism. Yeah. And so all of these pieces kind of have to find a way to nest like a puzzle, right? And it is complex and it is hard. And ULI right now, as much as anything we're doing, we are sustaining our presence as a neutral convener that brings together all of those stakeholder groups as frequently as possible to talk about these challenges. How do we see the puzzle pieces? What puzzle pieces might be missing? Do we understand, like you would like on the cardboard front of a puzzle, do we have a visual for where we think this thing is going? Who's holding what piece? Where does it fit and when? It's a complex and it's necessary. I think fundamentally it's necessary to do this. It's hard. It's full of friction. It's full of uncertainty and complexity. And when you're doing regional scale planning and development initiatives across all sectors, public sector, private sector, and more, it's hard, but it's so necessary, because if we don't, we just kind of grow accidentally. And various stakeholder resources might just simply begin to flow towards their path of least resistance. That's normal for all of us, I think. And then we end up with a place that doesn't feel cohesive. It doesn't feel made. And moreover, and worse, it starts to erode a sense of who we are. This thing that makes Northwest Arkansas so special, where we can balance a great built environment right next door to a great natural environment. Everybody's got choice, right? Where I live, what can I afford, how I move around my landscape, amenity-rich environment. Do I feel like I find myself in the identity of Northwest Arkansas? All of these things are so important, and we don't want to lose that. That's the secret sauce, right? And I think Northwest Arkansas is as good as I've ever seen at regional collaboration, and I think it's our biggest strength, in fact. And I am so grateful, so thankful to lead an organization with a mission as important as ULI and be right in the middle of it.
If the work is hard and it's a complex puzzle every day when you go to work, where do you find the enjoyment of that? What is the biggest payoff for you in the work that you do?
People. I think I'm people first kind of guy. It fills me up. You know, I look at the ULI board. For example, I look at the ULI board and I see we have mayors and we have executive leaders from the private sector. We have academics on our board. Mm-hmm. We have industry trades professionals, right? Senior leaders from various disciplines throughout, other nonprofiteers, you name it. And they're all incredible. Everybody here, everybody in the ULI world that I get to interact with, they're much like me. They're really committed to making Northwest Arkansas the best it can be. They all believe that our built environment matters, that how we choose to consume and build atop this landscape will either improve the quality of life of everyone that calls this place home and the economic opportunities that exist therein, or it starts to erode that. And we all show up with passion and resolve and the commitment to spend the majority of our waking hours solving this puzzle. As complex and difficult as it is, it's important and it's necessary if we're going to continue to be our best and achieve our fullest potential regionally. So those people, those leaders, those thinkers, those doers, those action ninjas out there every day fighting the good fight, they inspire me, and I'm so deeply grateful to be in their presence every day. There's a lot of other good things I could say, but I think I am a people first guy, and I love the network of leaders that I get to call friends and colleagues.
Yeah, we've got a great network of leaders here, and you mentioned regionalism and the fact that it works so well here, and it has for 30 years. That's how we've been able to do a lot of things. You came from Central Arkansas. You were heavily involved in Central Arkansas municipal leadership. And what is I'm not asking you to directly compare, but what is the difference? Why does regionalism work here and maybe doesn't work in some other areas, not just Central Arkansas? But what is the secret to regionalism taking hold here?
I'm going to give you a hunch. I don't know if it's valid. I mean, it's a thorough assessment of a lifetime of doing this work. I think it's informed hunch, but it is only mine. It is only my hunch. Sure. It may be invalid. I think there are two things that come to mind. I've thought about this a fair bit because it is definitely distinguishable. This is a distinguishable artifact.
Right.
Regionalism is more effective here than it is in Central Arkansas. Fundamentally, I think Central Arkansas historically is a monocentric metro, and as many monocentric metros faced in the mid 20th century, late 20th century, there was a lot of flight out of Little Rock. And over time, those satellite communities, yes, North Little Rock up close, but I'm really talking about Lonoke County, Faulkner County, and Saline County here. They began to take on an identity of their own and really become proud. And in many ways, looking at Conway, quite firewall. Conway's got an economy and a healthcare system and an education system and a quality of life. And Conway's got every strength necessary to serve, to be on its own, with or without this anchoring city called Little Rock. Now, that may not have always been the case, but 100 years into evolution, and it is. And I think that's true for a lot of the other cities, maybe not to the scale of Conway, but there's a pride associated with being Benton or Bryant or Cabot or Conway or Maumelle or even North Little Rock and even the smaller suburbs. So I think historically, just the growth of a monocentric with the flight that occurred in the late 20th century set conditions differently. Now you look up here and you see, especially over the recent past, a very polycentric metro with the big four cities. And now more than half of our growth is occurring outside those big four cities. Mm-hmm. Majority of housing starts and population is now arriving in the roughly 24 municipalities that surround the big four. But it breeds it. I think just being a polycentric metro inspires regionalism, right? Our growth inspires a sense of regionalism because we welcome newcomers. So many of us have a newcomer story, some a little bit older than others, but very few of us, in fact, now can say, I was born here. I'm multi-generational Northwest Arkansas. And so there's a spirit of welcome, a spirit of openness associated. So I think all those work together, the historic ebb and flow of how the metros grow monocentrically and polycentrically. I think they play a role. The second major reason is because you got key leaders. I mean, I look back at the founding of the council, and when the choice was made by those Northwest Arkansas founding fathers, if you will, you've got obviously Sam Walton and J.B. Hunt and Don Hyson, and you say, they made the statement, we're staying. But if we're going to stay, we gotta change a few things, and we're going to have to work to get us an interstate. We're going to have to work to update this airport, get it out of Drake Field. And we're going to have to make some investments that create the workforce that we need and attract the workforce that we need and more and more. And I think that set the compass for regional collaboration in a way that it might not have existed otherwise, but for those leaders coming together and establishing the council. Because now, right through where we are today, and things like the Razorback Greenway and regional coordination on growth strategy, the regional growth strategy that the council is getting ready to submit this spring and share with the public this spring, and more. The list goes on and on. The number of regional initiatives that were birthed because that decision was made, I think it's unique to Northwest Arkansas. I don't think it happens in many other places, and it's a forcing function that makes our jurisdictions partner and collaborate over important regional issues. That rising tide sort of spirit that exists, that what's good for Springdale is also good for Rogers, Fayetteville, and Bentonville, and more. That attitude is instrumental to our success.
All right. So you mentioned the council just celebrated their 35th anniversary, and all that they've accomplished. I mean, it's when you put it on a list, and just the things that you just rattled off there is not even half. It's just an incredible organization and convener. So let's look ahead 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the work you're doing and a lot of our other regional leaders are doing, if we get this right, you know, what does Northwest Arkansas look like in 15 or 20 years? And if we don't, what are the risks? Where can we slip through the cracks?
Well, I started using this phrase, the Northwest Arkansas promise. And here's how I define it. If you live in Northwest Arkansas, there's an implicit promise that has been made to you that you're joining a metro where you have close access to good services and amenities, where you have access to great education and great employment, generally safe environment, where you have access to the great outdoors, just out your backyard, where you have access to world-class entertainment, where all of these things can coexist in one place, and it's an affordable it's affordable life, right? Like you can find a home that you can afford that complements your needs and lifestyle in a place that you want to live, and right out your doorstep, good services, amenities, recreation, jobs, all of it. And that is a promise that we're really good at making good on in Northwest Arkansas. I think we have to ask ourselves, is it a given that promise will be here in 20 or 30 years for our kids and grandkids? And that is not a given. I want to be crystal clear about that. There's no layups, right? It is hard work. It is puzzle solving every single day if we're going to maintain this promise with a straight face and make good on it when people arise.
Yep.
It's our, right now, I think our big cities couldn't be prouder of. I'm thinking a lot about our small cities right now. Well, they're growing so rapidly. And I'm looking at you, Mayor Falkberry Grove, Mayor CP Ridge, and I'm looking at you, Mayor Noblet and Cave Springs, and Mayor Edwards and Centerton and more. And I hate to leave anybody out. I don't mean to do it on purpose. I could rattle off 2 dozen if I needed, but you all are the future of this region, right? And you're going to continue. You're already receiving the lion's share of residents, and you're going to continue to receive the lion's share of residents. I do not think we're going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think we have evolved to the spillover model, and Northwest Arkansas is now going to see those suburbs thrive around the Big Four at an increasing pace. The challenge we face, Paul, is how do we not make them all the same bedroom community? You and I can right now get on a plane or a bus and go visit dozens and dozens of metros that are a generation ahead of us on the growth curve. And I can put a blindfold on you, and I can drop you in the middle of any of their suburbs and ask you to tell me which one you're in. And I defy you to do it, because so often those suburban communities that surround the primary metro, whether it's monocentric with one big city or polycentric like our Big Four, very often those suburbs start growing in very similar ways. And you fast forward a generation or two, and they all start to look and feel the same. And I don't know that they're achieving the promise necessarily out there in the suburbs of those metros that are a generation or two ahead of us. I know they're not achieving their fullest potential of distinctive character and a distinctive identity in many of the suburbs and metros around the country. I believe that if we are going to continue to make this Northwest Arkansas promise to people who haven't arrived yet, and we're going to make good on it when they get here, we must, at the fastest pace possible, be investing in the planning and growth management capacity of the roughly 2 dozen small cities that surround the Big Four. And we have to help them understand what makes them unique and desirable. Mm-hmm. What is their comparable advantage to the next suburb, a short 5 or 10 minute drive down the highway? And what decisions we can be making for ourselves to ensure that we grow in an amenity-rich environment where people have a variety of housing and mobility choice that is affordable, where we can offer the same educational and recreational promises that the Big Four cities can, where we can stay in front of our infrastructure and growth management challenges, and we have the bonding capacity to take care of our own. When we can help the small cities scale at the speed they need to and achieve that level of capacity where they can be distinguishable and they can be proud of who they are and they can meet the growth needs, then I think we're definitely headed down the right path to making sure our children and grandchildren will achieve the same promise that we've been able to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I want to stick with this puzzle analogy that we've got going, and you just rattled a lot of the most important pieces off, right? Transportation and connectivity, housing mix and affordability, and infrastructure and pace of growth, and then the important one that you obviously think, and I do too, identity of these towns versus the scale. So I'm going to put you on the spot here then. Which of those puzzle pieces is the most important?
I think I would have to defer to a given community to identify. I mean, the infrastructure is just going to be a critical piece of it. It's just going to be. ULI published our emerging trends in real estate report on January 15th. It's out on our website. I encourage people to go take a look at it. It should come as no surprise what I'm about to say. Infrastructure. We listened to focus groups, did surveys, interviews, went through CoStar data, and infrastructure is just driving the conversation right now. And we've got to ensure that infrastructure is placed. That's both street and also water and utility services, stormwater as well. That is a very expensive challenge. And it is all too often not met. And so growth occurs. The water development is going to flow downhill. And if you've got a lot of available land, farmland out there that can be bought up and turned into residential subdivisions, that is hard inertia to stop. And very often, and this isn't just a Northwest Arkansas story, it's an America story. Very often that growth occurs before the infrastructure is fully prepared to serve it. And so we end up growing in a way that's not particularly resilient. We can maybe match the pace of that growth with a little bit of stormwater infrastructure. Or maybe we can build a road, but it's got open ditches instead of curb and gutter. Maybe we can't quite get the lit streets out there. Yeah. We can't afford the sidewalks. But we'll at least top coat that county road and we'll get it out there to where that subdivision is. And that's a tenuous bargain, a very tenuous bargain, because the growth is going to continue to come and the infrastructure needs to be robust enough to support that growth in a resilient way. Simultaneously, the tax base serves as infrastructure. And so how do we help these small cities not simply grow as residential bedroom communities of the Big Four, but grow in a way that they have their own tax base? In the state of Arkansas, our city jurisdictions they pay the bills with sales tax primarily, overwhelmingly they pay with sales tax. Well, if they're just bedroom communities, are they getting the grocery stores and the restaurants? Are they getting the hotels? Are they getting any other of those cash registers necessary so they can pay for police and fire and sanitation and all the other services, even amenities like parks and more? So infrastructure and tax base, I think, is critically important. But as far as identity goes and zoning and how you want to build your built environment, what's the role of open space and bikes and pedestrian in a built environment? Those are important questions. I think they're secondary to tax base and infrastructure. And they are best left for those communities to answer for themselves.
Right. Are you a bike rider? Are you a cyclist?
Very much. Very serious about it.
To work or to recreate or both? Or?
All of the above on occasion, when possible. I call East, we're near East Fayetteville, as I call it. If anybody knows the area, base of Mount Sequoia, Reed Elementary, Gully Park, all that area. I'm blessed, man. City of Fayetteville, the transportation infrastructure complemented by the recreation infrastructure, it's incredible. And it is right out our back door. So I always ride recreationally, but when feasible, I'll ride out, commute to a meeting, or whether it's with staff or another ULI partner, whatever it is, for sure.
Feasibility, does that include a temperature threshold either way?
The older I get, I don't know if it's a blood pressure thing or what, but these colder days, it is a barrier to entry, Paul, no doubt about it.
That's great. You and your wife, Emily, what do you love most about raising a family in Fayetteville?
The promise. I mean, I love Fayetteville. We chose it on purpose. We shopped around all four of the cities when we were shopping for homes in 2018. Nothing against any of them. Rogers, for example, reminds me an awful lot of downtown Conway. We would have loved him in downtown Rogers. Bentonville, mountain biking family, obviously wonderful there. Springdale, love the arts, love the multicultural scene. It was affordable at the time. Fundamentally, we chose Fayetteville. It was a mature city, It offered a lot of amenities. We like the college town vibe. I acknowledge it's not for everybody, but we love the fresh air as students ebb and flow through our community. We love the quiet summers.
Sure.
But I'm not displeased when students are around either. It's a nice vibe. And at the time, very importantly, at the time my wife was still working for UAMS. She'd moved her research from the Little Rock campus to the Fayetteville campus, and she did put her foot down and say, I've been commuting from Conway to Little Rock long enough. I am ready to shorten commute. And so that was a big deciding vote in why we chose Fayetteville. Love it. Don't regret it. I think Fayetteville's where we've planted roots, and it's where our 12-year-old son will call home. It'll be his hometown.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be prouder of that.
Let's go back to that last item that I read in your bio about the fly fishing.
Yeah.
A fishing guide. That's been part of who you are growing up, and it was a business for you at one point.
It was actually bigger than fly fishing. So I ran an adventure travel company for a period of time back in the 2000s. We focused on vehicle-based travel. It's taken the form of overlanding these days. I was way too early to the market on that. But fundamentally, we would invite folks out to the Ozark and the Washtenaw National Forest, and we would help them use their tools. Like folks have a Jeep or they have some camping gear, but they may not necessarily be fully comfortable in using those tools in the great outdoors. And so leveraging my Army experience and some other relationships around the region, we'd take folks out on adventure trips, long weekends, and we would do some off-roading. We talk about how to build a fire, how to do wilderness first aid, how to communicate in the backcountry with ham radios, and more. And fishing was a part of that, but fishing's been a part of my life since I was a little kid. I grew up on a cattle farm, fishing in the ponds to where I am today. I got a fishing boat, little river skiff, and I still love getting out. I can't say I've ever been a paid guide. I've been an adventure travel guide, but I've never been a paid fishing guide. But maybe for retirement, I can do it. I think if I do, it'll be targeting kids and veterans, helping people discover the joy of fishing. But that's a retirement goal.
How do you leverage? You mentioned leveraging your Army experience. How do you do that into your work with ULI? Like you're a convener, like you mentioned, and not just here. I mean, ULI just hosted a national event, right, with people from all over the country and the world came here. And if one thing we know how to do in Northwest Arkansas, it's summits, right? It's gatherings. We have large scale gatherings for whatever your stated purpose is. So how do you leverage your military background in approaching how you approach your work with ULI?
So it's invaluable. I didn't, I joined for 9/11, got the call to serve, acknowledged that it's an adventure. I didn't know what to expect. I really leaned in, took advantage of what it was, leveraged all of the benefits to my benefit. I'm no dummy. The Army's put a lot into me. Little did I know that the leadership, education, the pillars of professional development in the Army, the institutional, the operational, and the self-development pillars would shape who I become as a leader and a manager of organizations and operations. And I think it's on display in virtually everything I do. I tone it down. I don't want to have a military presence among my staff team at ULI, nor among any of our partners and friends. So I do my best to code switch, but functionally, structurally, everything that I know about leading and managing large organizations in complex and uncertain environments with limited resources and uncertain partners and big goals. Everything I know about leadership and management, I chalk up to what the Army has invested in me. And it's one of the reasons I continue to stay in to this day, because the Arkansas Army National Guard is dense with incredible leaders, men and women doing every available operational specialty, occupation you could think of, all mentors to me. There's not a weekend I don't go down, or a week of training, or a conference somewhere, or a deployment. I'm still doing those every 5 or so years. Well, there's not an experience in uniform that doesn't make me better because of it. And I try to bring those lessons and those fundamentals back and employ them in maybe more sensitive ways, a little more civilian code, but I try to bring it back because I believe in it. I think the Army is really good at doing hard things well. And Lord knows, trying to help this region deliver itself the best, deliver a form the best it can be is definitely a hard challenge. And yeah, I'm very, very grateful to everything that shaped me, including the military and UCA.
Right. Great. That's great stuff. Well, I really appreciate the conversation, and I think it's going to resonate with some people who have an interest in. Look, we're going so fast up here. We are we're trying to manage a lot of different things, and a lot of different groups like yours and others are trying to help manage those and help plan and help us deliver on that promise. So, where can people keep up with you and your work and what the ULI does for watching this or listening to this right now?
Arkansas.uli.org.
Okay.
If you want to be involved, and this goes for anybody, generally we work with professionals in industry disciplines, but we love to hear from Joe and Jane Public too. The citizen gets a vote, and we are definitely tuned in. Welcome anybody who wants to be engaged in influencing and shaping and dialoguing about the future of this region's built environment. Encourage you to lean into ULI. Swing by our website. You can subscribe to the newsletter at the bottom of any of our web pages. Keep up with what we're doing. Definitely find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Join us for an event, or just simply drop us a note. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's, anyone who cares about the long-term health and success of this region, right? That's the perspective you have today. That's exactly the kind of a voice that we want to have on our podcast for not only our UCA audience, but our Northwest Arkansas audience. So really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and continued success. It was a great conversation.
Paul, we certainly appreciate all that you're doing, and grateful to the entire UCA family for choosing to make this presence in Northwest Arkansas. I think it's very important, and thankful for not just my own experience at UCA, but for all you stand for as an institution. Keep up the great work.
All right. Awesome. Appreciate you. Thanks for saying that. All right. We appreciate everybody tuning into this edition of Central to NWA. Until next time, go Bears.
Go Bears.
That's it for this episode of Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. I'm Paul Gatling, Senior Director of Northwest Arkansas Engagement for the University of Central Arkansas. Be sure to subscribe to the show and follow UCA on all the appropriate social media. I'll see you next time on Central to NWA.